Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining the workshop entitled What Faculty Said, Feedback and Outcomes from a Zoom-Based Book Study. We are so excited to have Dr. Hodges here at our 33rd Annual ADEIL Conference. I am Teresa Handy, your session host. Today's session will run for about 45 minutes and include time for Q&A at the end. Whether you're joining us from down the street or across the globe, we are so glad you're here. So please use the chat for any questions or tech issues you may have, and we are excited to have you. I now have the pleasure of introducing our presenter today. Chuck has over 30 years of experience in higher education. He earned a PhD from the School of Education at Virginia Tech, majoring in instructional design and technology, as well as mathematics degrees from Fairmont State University and West Virginia University. His professional interests are learner self-efficacy, instructional design and evaluation, and teaching and learning online. He is a professor of instructional technology at Georgia Southern University, where he teaches in the online instructional technology program. Recently, his research and writing has appeared in EDUCAUSE Review, Educational Technology Research and Development, and Computers in Schools. Formerly, he was the manager of Virginia Tech's Advanced Technology Learning Center, commonly known as the Math Emporium. He is the editor-in-chief of the
Mhm.
AECT journal Tech Trends. So, thank you so much. You all will hear from him next, and I'd like to toss it over to Chuck. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Lee, for attending. If it's just the three of us, I'm perfectly happy for you to interrupt me at any point, and we can chat about whatever's on the slides. One correction in my bio, which was not Teresa's fault, is I am the former editor of Tech Trends. I did that for about 10 years. I've been out of it for about a year. It was a real blast to do that, but that part's over. Okay, today I am happy to come and talk about something that I do through my um, faculty center, is what we call it here. It's our Center for Teaching Excellence. I'm a faculty member in our College of Education, but I frequently organize and facilitate book studies for our faculty center. And I'm here to talk about one that I was a little bit more intentional about and um, collected some data and some things on it last year. So what we're talking about today is something that I did a year ago. So to give you a little bit of context, Georgia Southern University, it's about 50 miles west of Savannah, Georgia. Everybody's heard of Georgia Tech and UGA, but not everybody's heard of Georgia Southern. We're a Carnegie R2 university. We have faculty distributed across three campuses because of some mergers. So we have the kind of the traditional uh, historical campus in Statesboro, Georgia, which is where I am. We have several faculty in Savannah at the Armstrong campus, which we absorbed Armstrong State University. And we have a smaller campus about an hour in a different direction. So we're all in like a triangle near the Fort Stewart Army Base. We will soon pick up two more campuses through another merger that happens in January, but that's not part of this study. And um, I did a synchronous online book study with people from all across the campus, hoping to kind of grow a little bit of a community of practice, maybe. And the book, it's not really uh, super important, but you may know the book. It's going to disappear on me. Yeah, there it is. It's the Bowen and Watson AI book that came out a couple of years ago. It's been pretty popular, and the faculty really liked it. But this isn't an AI session. What we did was a book study around this book. So, why do a book study? Well, if you look at the literature, it promotes active and collaborative learning. Um, Participants like it because they're allowed to kind of dive in and do their own thing, do some self-directed learning. You get this nice peer-to-peer support, especially at least in this book study and others that I've done. You get people from all across campus, so you get to meet people and interact with people and study with people from, outside your department and college. Since these things are, not compulsory, there's a lot of relevance because they selected to join them, and some buy-in because it's voluntary. They want to be there for the most part. I did have one person, I think, who was kind of assigned to some faculty development, but for the most part, these folks were there because they wanted to look at the topic. Um, it's also inexpensive. You can get bulk prices on books. My faculty center will typically buy a copy of the book for everybody, which they did with this Bowen and Watson book, so you can get kind of volume pricing. But in the last year, they've also just got the library to buy a digital copy, and that's what they give everybody is, just go get it out of the library. So it's pretty inexpensive. Hello, Dr. Jarvis. Thank you for joining us. Uh, if you want to look at some literature about, the efficacy and the positive attributes of book studies, I've got some example literature on the last slide. I don't have a comprehensive reading list, but I do have some good examples on my last slide at the end. I'm currently writing up a paper based on this whole study, so I'm kind of constantly gathering some more literature as I go through that process. Um, so, how did I design my book study? I looked through the literature, and there wasn't like this grand design that you could just use. Um, there were more just kind of descriptions of how people did their book studies. And so here's what mine was like. It was a structured, synchronous online session. We used Zoom. Again, that made it available to the faculty from the three different campuses, so nobody had to travel one place or the other. We had whole group discussions and intentionally structured uh, breakout activities, and the readings again were from the Bowen and Watson AI book. And I got 15 people. There were probably, this was AI, that's a big topic. We probably had about 30 people who registered for this book study, but 15 who kind of hung on and were throughout all of four sessions. It was four 1 hour sessions spaced out every 2 weeks so that they had a chance to kind of read and get caught up and ready. That's a kind of a design constraint that I have when I do these is I found if you try to charge through, at least with my faculty here, if you try to charge through and do weekly meetings, the reading gets behind and people get caught up. So I try to do them four, maybe five sessions, but that's a pretty big commitment, the leap from 4 to 5, and to space them out every 2 weeks so people do have a chance to do the reading and be ready to go. Um, so some guiding questions. I've done these for a while, like I said, at least a couple of years I've done book studies, and they're sort of kind of like one-off things. You do it, you have these nice discussions, you meet some people, and I was interested in making this one a little bit more systematic and kind of looking at my own practice. So I wanted to know, how effective is this online book study format um, in on AI in education? That's what the book was. And what elements, the things that I have kind of developed over the few years, do they really like? Do the faculty like and think are valuable? And um, does it foster some authentic community of practice? Now, I realize if you're going to do this over four sessions, you're not going to actually develop this rich, deep community of practice. But what I've found is a lot of the same faculty tend to participate. So this kind of grows the faculty center into that community of practice together. And if you give them things that they value and that they enjoy doing, then they'll come back and you kind of see some of the same faces. So I don't really want to fool myself into thinking a four-session book study is going to make this authentic practice, community practice, but it can assist with growing that faculty center as a community. Okay, so the typical sessions, they were 1 hour, and other than the first session, we started with a follow-up from the last session, a welcome and a follow-up. And maybe just the follow-up would be, was there anything we did in the last session that you forgot to ask or that you meant to ask or something like that? Can we get you caught up? And then knowing that not all the faculty, even with the 2 week window to do the reading, not everybody is going to have a chance to do it and in depth. So what I do is I ask for somebody from the group to do a quick summary. This book study, we did 3 chapters per session. So I would ask 3 different people. I just ask for volunteers to do just a really quick summary of what the chapter was, like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, to bring that back to the mind of somebody who might have read it 2 weeks ago, or to give somebody who hasn't done their reading just a little flavor of what we're going to be talking about. Um, then I'd have some short open discussion. Usually with the welcome and follow-up, I try to use the polling features in Zoom, to ask some questions about what was the something you're most interested in, or what was something that was confusing to you, just to have that running as people are coming in the room, and we can kind of use that to jump off at some points. Um, and that might kind of induce this short open discussion about the full 3 chapters that we had read. Um, with a group of 15, it was pretty easy to manage. The people were pretty good about taking turns, raising their hand on Zoom and whatnot. Um, but what I had discovered over other book studies was, if you just kind of say, "What did you think about the 3 chapters?" then you can get focused on one chapter. You can um, some one person can kind of monopolize the whole conversation. So I would limit that. And I use my phone. I would set timers. I would tell them we're going to do this for 8 minutes or something. And I would try to use my moderation skills, which I've gotten better over time, to, kind of keep the discussion on target and moving along. Then I would design before the sessions um, some question or two for the breakout sessions. Um, I would generally myself look at the chapters and come up with 2, maybe 3 different possible questions for the breakout sessions. And this short open discussion, I would use that on the fly to help me pick which one seemed like, everybody was interested in this, or, oh, we already covered that in the short open discussion, so let's go to this other question. And I'd send people out to the breakout rooms. Um, the breakout rooms, this would usually last maybe 15 minutes, and then we would come back and they would report out. Um, you know, I try to be really interactive with these groups, so I would pop into the breakout sessions and just listen, or if they were having trouble getting going on a conversation, I might try to spur that along. And I would use the features in Zoom where you can kind of broadcast a message to make sure that, they remembered, here's the question, somebody take notes, you're going to have to report out. And I found this to be really important. This is just Zoom facilitation, maybe, is I would have the groups, when Zoom breaks them out, like here, it's group number 1. We're in room 1, breakout room 1. But in these meetings, when you get tossed into a breakout room, you don't necessarily remember which room you were in. So simply asking people to report out room number 1, room number 2, sometimes that people are scratching their head and they don't volunteer because they don't remember what group they're in. So as the facilitator, you get this list of the breakout rooms and who's in them. So I would just write them down really quickly, just jot them down on a piece of paper. So when we came to that report out session, I would say, "Okay, who wants to go first? We got room number 1. It had Teresa, Lee, and Dawn in it." And that would be enough for them to kind of, "Oh, that was our group. We better go." And then, we'd have this nice discussion as people did report out. Sometimes the reports were long and we didn't get to have a lot of closing discussion. But other times the report outs were a little bit shorter and we could pull things together. I tried to take a lot of notes as people were reporting out, so I could kind of uh, find overarching themes in our discussion or common ideas, and then make announcements about the readings for next time and when the next meeting was. Um, so that's kind of the typical session design for 1 hour. It was much more structured for me than previous book studies that I had facilitated. I wanted to make sure to keep things moving, and I found that the putting them in the breakout rooms really seemed to uh, keep one person from kind of monopolizing the whole conversation for the whole group. So here's some results that I got. I gave them all a survey at the end. At the very last session, I was asked to do a survey, and 15 people responded. This was formatted a little bit better when I looked at it last night. So the book study format, they liked it. It's 4.23 out of 5. The organization of the sessions, they liked it even a little bit better, and they were pretty happy with my facilitation. I don't try to interject a lot of my own thoughts and comments. I try to focus all my effort on simply uh, making sure things kind of stay on topic and moving along and they're organized. Everybody's busy. I don't want to get them in there and waste time and have a lot of dead air, that kind of thing. So I try to keep things rolling. Um, this is again from the survey. Um, our topic was AI in education, and at least their self-reported you know, increased knowledge was that they did felt like they learned more. This was a really great group. Um, I don't mean to throw shade on the current group, but they asked me to do the same book again this fall, and they're a little bit less interactive, even though I'm using the same format. So there is some element to the personalities in the room. Um, the faculty did say in their survey that they were going to implement some new strategies in their teaching. Like I said, this is not an AI session today, but one of my goals with this was to make sure that the people who attended through the reading were aware basically of what AI can do and how they might want to look at their classes and think about the assignments they're giving and those sort of things. So a lot of them came away from it thinking, oh yeah, there are some things I need to change or things I need to do. And it looks, about 90% said they were going to do that. And several of them said that they were actually, in the course of the book study, making changes right then. So it wasn't just after this book study, I'm going to make some changes. They started making changes in their teaching right as we were doing the book study. So I felt like that was pretty impactful. Um, I don't have the breakdown to share with me today, but we had a really nice group of cross-disciplinary faculty. We had folks from education, we had folks from criminal justice, we had a couple of nursing faculty members, a chemist, a math guy. So we had um, lots of different folks. There was a guy from economics. So we had College of Business, College of Health, College of Science, College of Education, a lot of different folks coming together. And I don't know what your campus is like, but I don't usually run into faculty mixed groups like that very often. I'm in my college and that's the folks that I see. So I really like this opportunity to meet people from across campus. Um, 92% said the discussions were, providing meaningful insights. Pat myself on the back for, because I designed those. But they also interjected a lot, and it was a good group. Um, they really liked the cross-disciplinary dialogue um, that they had in the group. They expressed that in the survey at the end, that they really liked being able to talk to people from different parts of campus. So, even like the math guy and the chemist, they're both STEM, but they may not be talking to each other. And the nurses, and it was really great to talk to different people and to have different expectations around, ideas around plagiarism and assessment, those sort of things. It was really nice to see um, the cross-disciplinary ideas that were shared. There were also qualitative aspects. To this. I kept notes as I went through it myself, and there were some things in the survey they were asked. Um, they use words like transformative and collaborative. They really like those aspects of the book study design. Um, in those open discussions and in the breakout rooms, you would talk about things like how are you using AI in your class? And, it was the content of the book. Um, but they really liked kind of hearing, from other faculty, of course, what are you doing in your class? How are you implementing these things? And it was really highly valued that you had faculty learning from faculty. That's no big revelation there. Faculty always like that, but it was a good result of the book study. And they really liked, um, again, that cross-disciplinary piece where they could, hear how other people were using it. Um, we all think that our disciplines are a lot different, but assessment wise, we often give a lot of the same things. We give essays, we give papers, we give multiple choice tests. So it was nice to hear people talking about different strategies, different problems, different things that they've done um, with, kind of common assessment types. Um, Again, the community of practice, I realize in 4 sessions, we're not going to build this wonderful community of practice, but there were questions around that, and they did feel like, that during the book study that they had formed a community. They were highly interactive. They talked a lot. They were very supportive of each other, and they really liked the community building and the small group interactions. So when I would put them off in the breakout rooms, they really liked that aspect. Um, in prior book studies that I had done, myself I had facilitated, or ones that I had just participated in, um, it's kind of like, at least in the ones here, it was, okay, what did you think? We read chapters 2 and 3. What did you want? But I felt like the structure here that I had designed into it really helped people, feel like they got a little bit more interactivity. Rather than being one voice in a group of 15 or 20, in the small groups, they were one voice in a group of 4 or maybe 5 people. Of course, I'm an instructional designer at heart, so I always like to know, what do you think I could have done better? And they requested structured reflection prompts to prepare for each session. And that's something that I haven't implemented this year with the kind of the round 2 with this book. I should probably try that and see, but it's oftentimes with the book studies I facilitate, I kind of feel like it's about all they can do to do the required reading or the recommended reading before they get there, much less have something else that they have to do before they come. But they asked for it, so maybe I'll try that in the future. Uh, they also wanted recordings. Um, I'm not so big into this, especially because the topic here was AI. I've given a lot of AI presentations over the last few years, and I usually don't allow recording because the information changes pretty often, and I don't want some recording laying around for 6 months or 8 months and somebody coming across it and then not realizing that it's old and maybe some of the information's out of date. Um, so I haven't done the recordings kind of for that reason with this content. I guess I could do it in the future. It would be fine with me for some different content. And they wanted you know, to incorporate something more than just discussion. So I've been toying around with, adding some type of Padlet, something, where people can contribute like that. But um, I do feel like the data that I got from the last time, the way I had it structured, it was pretty successful in my view. And I don't want to add something, just for the heck of it. So I need to find some meaningful, if there's a meaningful way to do something interactive beyond discussion, I'm open to that. But I did like the success that I found with the current design. Let's see. So let's look at some key findings. Um, this synchronous online book study, it was a viable and effective approach. It seemed like it had a lot of good positives from my perspective as a facilitator, and also when feedback from the faculty. They really liked that it was cross-disciplinary from around campus. They liked, for the most part, the structured small group, breakout rooms that I would do. And um, they had a high satisfaction with the facilitation. So that was, positive for me, but I also think it suggested that, they like that structure, not necessarily my personality, but they liked to have someone there to kind of keep things moving. We had an agenda, we're keep moving things moving along, keep people on topic, and that they did self-report. that they had increased knowledge, and that they were going to implement some things in their teaching afterwards, which I felt that was awesome. That last bullet point to me is what it was all for. They knew more about AI when they left, and they were actually going to, make some implementation changes in their classes. And I'm not saying they had to incorporate AI. They might have been doing, I had at least one person who was trying to defeat AI. So they kind of learned through the course of the book how difficult that was going to be. And they were going to try some flipped classroom things to make sure kids in class with no technology could, do certain things. So it wasn't all about use AI, rah, rah, rah. It was kind of the state of the climate on this topic. My personal recommendations for just the practical aspects of running one of these book studies was design small group breakouts. Make sure they have a clear purpose. So I designed those about 3 questions that I could kind of pick on the fly to use. And my participants said they wanted these pre-session reflection questions. So maybe that's something to consider. Um, They also wanted perhaps the recording. So, if you could do something hybrid that was synchronous and asynchronous, I guess the asynchronous aspect would allow people to get caught up if they missed a session a little bit more easily. Um, Make sure if you're facilitating one of these sessions that you're not really there to interject your thoughts and opinions on the book, but more just being the skilled facilitator. So know your tools, know Zoom, know how to use the breakout rooms, know how to use the chat box, those kind of things. And, you know, I always a big proponent of having the little pad and paper around so I can jot down a name. I can jot down, little notes about where people are from. I can mention things like, who here was from nursing? Can you share about that? Who was from math? Can you do that? So taking the notes on the fly to kind of help you facilitate. And let's see here. Yeah, practical application and peer learning. Build in implementations for beyond the initial learning experience. So, my faculty center, usually these book studies are part of some track where they're earning a badge, a little credential from doing something like maybe technology and education. And they create action plans and whatnot. And they do like those. So they kind of have something they can pull on later to say, oh, I was going to do this. And they can come back to the faculty center, not necessarily me, but to say, these are things that I wanted to try or I wanted to do. Can you help me do those? So it brings it back to the faculty center. Um, let's see here. Synchronous online book studies offer an evidence-based approach. Like I said, I've got a lot of literature to kind of support book studies. They really like the cross-disciplinary small group. Um, they were pretty satisfied with it. So, a lot of people don't like online stuff anymore. They would rather be, at least on my campus, a lot of people would rather be in a room where they can talk to you, um, even though we do have the 3 separate campuses. So they like the Zoom aspect, and the thoughtful design and skilled facilitation seem to really help people connect and learn something from the group. Um, I did only have 15 folks from a single institution. It was all self-reported data, and this was all just kind of formative evaluation without a control group. So, um, the title said, what they said, or what they said was just their perceptions of their participation. Can't really prove anything. Um, so it's down to time for questions. I'm going to leave up, if you wanted to jot them down, here's some of the sample literature. Um, I'm easy to find. Chuck Hodges, Charles Hodges at Georgia Southern University. If you want to follow up later, just send me an email and I can send you these references or other things that you might have.
Awesome.
But,
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. And fun fact, I'm in a book club doing this as well.
yay, nice job.
I know. It's a local. It's some educators here where I live, not through my university. But
Hmm.
do you mind putting your email in the chat?
Oh
That
yeah.
yeah, that way people can so I want to give our participants an opportunity to ask a question if they have one or comment or anything.
Yeah, Chuck, I have a number of questions. This is Lee. I'm out at Western Washington University, and
Coast to coast.
yeah, exactly. And I've been thinking about doing this for a while at our similar teaching faculty center. And
Mhm.
so I have a few questions for you. One is, I mean, AI is such a big draw for our faculty right now, such a high interest topic. I wonder about this topic compared with other topics that you've done for book studies. What kind of faculty interest did you get with other topics?
Um, I would say that the AI books I did last year, I did the Bowen and Watson book in the fall and the very excellent Ethan Mollick Co-Intelligence book in the spring. And I had some follow-up folks that kind of went from one book study to the next. Um, there was pretty high draw in those. So I would maybe say kind of a nice core group of 15. Um, to give you an idea of what that, my campus is around at the time was around 28,000 students. Seems I was getting like 15 faculty to come.
Mhm.
Um, but I've done other book studies just around like online teaching and um, things like that. It was less students, but I don't know if it's statistically significant, less participants, maybe 10 instead of 15 or something. But um, I kind of feel like my faculty center has this core group of folks who will show up and want to do things. It's like that community of practice.
Hmm.
Um, but definitely, I think that the AI books, in any book you could pick that would be trendy and current, would probably draw more people than something else.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And then another question I had is all of our PD that we do that we can compensate faculty for, we get,
Mhm.
of course, much more participation in those offerings.
Mhm.
So is this something I heard you say it's part of a badging track, but is it something that you compensate faculty for?
That is a great question. And um, I've worked different places where you kind of got at least some type of reward for doing faculty development. Here, my faculty center is really underfunded, and there is no compensation at all.
Okay.
The carrot is they used to give you a hard copy of the book, and now they've
Yeah.
even gone to giving to the library link. So
Yeah, I feel you. That's sort of what we're at these days
yeah.
as well. Another question that comes up for us for any of our offerings, particularly with things that are multiple meeting times like this, is how do you make your decisions on time of the quarter or time of the semester if you're on a semester system? It's always difficult for us to make those decisions on what's going to work best for the faculty. So,
That is a really great question. And so the timing, for, there's a little bit of it that's selfish on my part. I like to do things on Tuesdays or Wednesdays in the afternoon, like 2:30 p.m. or 3:30 p.m. And since I'm volunteer labor for the faculty center, I usually say, "Yeah, I'll do it, but we're going to do it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday at 2:30." Um, and as far as time of the semester, I work with one of the folks in the faculty center, and we just kind of eyeball it a little bit. And so we start our classes usually, I'll say mid-August on average. And we know, okay, well, everybody's going to be getting up to speed, so we're not going to start anything in August. And then we got Labor Day. So let's start like the Tuesday or Wednesday right after Labor Day, and we'll run it for 4 weeks. And we also try not to do anything, as we're approaching the Thanksgiving holidays and things like that. So we kind of have this window of, early September to mid-October where we kind of feel like these will work. One complication is it hasn't really impacted us, but I know there are a lot of professional meetings in October. So if you had a group of faculty that were always going to go to one particular meeting, I guess you'd want to dodge that. But
mhm.
that's how we do it, is we kind of look at, nobody wants to do anything right when school starts. We want to try to avoid Thanksgiving holidays. So let's aim for September, October. In the spring, it's something similar. We avoid January. We kind of aim for February, March, kind of before spring break sort of thing.
Hmm. Great, thanks. I have one final question, and that is related to your breakout groups, your small groups. So,
Mhm.
in our professional development, we have one that meets for 5 weeks like this and is cross-disciplinary as well. And our faculty also just love that aspect. But
Mhm.
one thing that we do to build that community of practice a little bit more is those small groups do meet with the same small group cohort for those 5 weeks. So they get to know their group a little bit better. So I wonder, do you do that with your breakout groups, or is that just random week by week?
I think that's really awesome that you do that. That's really good. I would probably say there's some support for that in the literature somewhere, but I don't. Um, Usually the core group of folks who come pretty consistently, but they don't have to register, for each individual meeting. They don't always tell me if they're not going to come, so I just kind of do it on the fly when we get there. I just tell Zoom to randomly put them in the rooms.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the questions. Lots of good ones.
Yes. The question I had, because I also am very interested in doing an asynchronous book study in Canvas. Have you ever done one of those before? An asynchronous?
I haven't done the asynchronous thing.
Gotcha.
I have participated in kind of asynchronous faculty development, not through our center, but through like professional organizations. But I haven't organized or facilitated one of those myself.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we can give you back about 8 minutes
Hmm.
of your afternoon before the next session starts.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you. And what I'd like to say before everyone heads off is this brings us to the end of our session. A huge thanks to Chuck for his engaging session and to all of you for being a part of this conversation. Don't forget to fill out the conference feedback form. I'm going to put that link in the chat, and we hope to see you at other sessions throughout the afternoon. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.